Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. In the previous episode, we spoke about this idea of believing in fairy tales and how that can awaken nightmares. But there's another way that you can believe in fairy tales as well, by being in denial about reality. Do you know anyone like that? Because being in denial can seem like it's perfectly harmless. So what if you don't know what's really going on in the world? But it can actually be very dangerous as well. Now, when I looked at that map, well, the map you see on screen, I misread area of detail when I last looked at it. Area of detail as area of denial. And that kind of gave me an idea for this video. Incidentally, my video on this case where I used that image, I think it's the most powerful thus far. I really think it's my best analysis thus far on this particular case. No one has wanted to watch that video. It has the least views. Go and have a look. And I understand that because it's insulting. And it's especially insulting if we're in a soldier mindset and our response is to be impinged. And when we're impinged, we defend our psychological fortresses. No one likes to be told you are kind of in a wannabe state of mind. So what's the alternative? What's the alternative to being defensive? Well, it's to be curious, to acknowledge that there may be something we don't know about ourselves and the world. And this channel is for people who are curious, people who are open-minded, people who are critical thinkers. If you're new to this channel and you haven't subscribed, please hit the subscribe button. If you're enjoying this episode, please like, share, leave a comment. By the way, I'm going to be doing some really fun, interesting coverage on the Titanic disaster. I really just kind of got sucked into some of the information, and some of the science really is fascinating, and maybe thoughts and ideas and scenarios you've never thought of before. So look out for that. If you're really enjoying this episode, you can hit the thanks button and let's get started. So think about what we spoke about in that particular video about Long Island being a great chain of wannabeing, right? I don't think it's just Long Island. I think there are some entire countries that are in the same place, that want to be something else. It feels a lot like that in South Africa. Also, that statement about Long Island detonating with psychopathic resentment and rage. There are a lot of suburbs all over the world where that is taking place. Maybe you're unlucky enough to live in one. Maybe you live in a complex, I know I do, that is detonating with psychopathic resentment and rage. Let's be honest about it. So I get it. And I also get that it's too on the chin. It cuts too close to home when you just say it like that. But the flip side of it is, if I can be personal and a little indulgent, I'm jealous. I'd also like to live in Manhattan. I'd like to even live in Long Island, even the part filled with resentment. And the point I'm trying to make here is that this whole hunger for power thing isn't new. It's not like we're reinventing the wheel. This whole hunger for power thing in colloquial terms is known as keeping up with the Joneses, or preferably leaving the Joneses in your dust and leaving them behind in your rearview mirror, right? Ever since we came out of our caves and we saw better caves and warmer fires and nicer dancing girls somewhere else, we've struggled with inadequacy. We've tried to improve our lot in life. And in a certain sense, to aspire to be better is good. But when you look at Rex Heuermann and you look at this idea of aspiring to be better, then what comes up is this idea that what if you aspire to be better but you fail? What if you work hard or you want something but for whatever reason you don't achieve it? And someone actually mentioned that, does he have a speech impediment? I haven't come across any analysis on that, but it will be very interesting to know if he had that at school. So if anyone's listening, if you're at school with him, I'd be very interested, did he have any difficulty enunciating at school? Because that then becomes an actual manifestation of struggling to express yourself, feeling limited, and that then expressing itself as this struggle to actually open your mouth and say what you think and say what you're feeling and ask for what you want.
Greed, for lack of a better word, is good.
When I was in America in April and May, there's a sense of just how materialistic America is, but at the same time, what a successful and wealthy country America is. And so one does have a sense that greed is good. But what happens when, or is there a scenario where greed isn't good? Well, how about when greed is frustrated? When your neighbor is greedy and he gets what he wants? When your other neighbor is greedy and he gets what he wants? And you, the neighbor in the middle, sitting in a kind of a pigsty or a dump, and you greedy but you don't get what you want. How does that feel? Greed, if you think about it, represents a kind of wanna-being in general. But that's the problem. Self-actualization is fine if you start that process without cheating. How do you do that? Well, you accept yourself, you be yourself, you expand yourself, you work with what you have. That's why I use the allegory of Rocky Balboa. He uses his strength and his strength of will to rise to the top, to pull himself out of obscurity. He uses self-discipline and self-belief. He uses his own two hands. We can too. Instead of pining for all the things we don't have, well, work with what you do have. Expand your circle of influence using what you already have. And this is not a project of magical thinking, fantasy, hopes and dreams. It's a labor of love. It's blood, sweat and tears. Arbeid maak vry, which means work makes you free. Hard work sets you free, not fuzzy fairy tales. If you want to become a fairy tale, if you want to become a serial killer, try to cheat and lie and fantasize your way out of who you are and what your situation really is. If you want real success, find the best in yourself. Put it on a surfboard of practical, real-world psychology and find a wave and surf it. Now, if a lot of this analysis, especially in this episode, has felt very fuzzy and fluffy and non-specific, one of the things that particularly interests me when you do think about serial killers is how they are products of society, how they are also reflections of society. And I know we don't want to think about that and we don't want to have that conversation. I know we don't want to imagine that we play any role collectively, culturally, in creating some of the monsters that are among us. But we really do. And if you don't want to have that conversation, it's fine. Don't have that conversation. Don't be curious. But if you are curious and you do have this conversation, you not only learn incredible and valuable insights, disturbing, yes, but also helpful if you apply them, if you see them and learn from them. In terms of our society, in terms of our culture, where we learn how to be more human beings to one another, more empathetic to one another, right? And also give ourselves a break to some extent, that you don't have to be in this competition with your fellow man. You can kind of realize and understand that it can actually sometimes feel soul-destroying. And so at a certain point in time, if that's you, you can decide, I'm not going to be running on this hamster wheel anymore. I'm going to choose to accept the situation and actually be happy with it. Or not. You can continue being in denial and you can continue pushing. Maybe you succeed, but maybe you don't. Just bear in mind that a very, very long period of denial, like a lifetime's worth of denial, ends up being a fairy tale and one with not a happy ending. So I'm not going to take it further than that. I will be doing the number 4 clue we all missed, and that one is going to kind of hold hands with the number 3 clue. So you can start thinking about that in the meantime. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.